الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا ونبينا وطبيب قلوبنا وحبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Assalamu alaikum everybody. Inshallah everybody is having a nice and peaceful Sha'ban at home. Inshallah that, with the events going on around the world, they're not preventing us from gaining knowledge and gaining the spirituality we need and getting the benefits of this month, inshallah. We pray to everybody who's been affected, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them all peace in the way that He desires, inshallah. Before we start, we want to send the thawab of this program to our Imam and Savior, Sahib RSR2020, and we're going to do that by reciting Dua al-Faraj, inshallah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم كن وليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آبائه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Today's lecture, inshallah, is going to be looking at one of the steps of actualization. So last week we discussed how the human soul that we have is in potential. And that doesn't mean that we don't have it. It means that we have some kind of access to its tools and characteristics, but not complete control. And we need to have complete control over it if we want to achieve our purpose of becoming insan al-kamil, and being able to control our desires, inshallah, and becoming better than angels. There are multiple reasons why we want to actualize it. And to be able to actualize it, we need to do 4 things. These are the 4 conditions. So in lecture 4 about potentiality and actuality, we talked about conditions required for a seed to grow. We said the sun and water and earth. For our human soul, these conditions are loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, loving our Ahlul Bayt, doing dhikr, and hanging out with the right people. And the one that we're going to discuss today is loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This one may be the most important out of them all, but it cannot be achieved without the other 3. It is the one which encompasses the other 3, but the other 3 are there to get us to this particular goal, which is loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's super important. If we look at the Quran and what it says about us loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're going to look at a specific ayah from Surah At-Tawbah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل إن كان آباؤكم وأبناؤكم وأخوانكم وأزواجكم وعشيرتكم وأموال اقترفتموها وتجارة تخشون كسادها ومساكن ترضونها أحب إليكم من الله ورسوله وجهاد في سبيله فتربصوا حتى يأتي الله بأمره والله لا يهدي القوم الفاسقين. So say if your parents, children, siblings, spouses, tribes, which in our case would be the societies, the money that you spend and what you spend it on, the trade that you're involved in with decreasing fear, which means the jobs that we have, and the place that you live in, and it's more than just a house, I mean the home, the community that in which we reside in. If all of these are more beloved to you than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His messenger, and doing work for His sake, these are the 3 conditions, then wait till Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brings His order. And that order will be death, and to see the reality of our actions. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not guide corrupt people. It's it's really interesting how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is linking our love for things besides Him, His Prophet, and work towards Him with corruption. It's kind of scary, and we need to explore why. So what is corruption? If you remember in last week's lecture, we talked about knowledge is power, and if misused, power could lead to corruption. So in general sense, corruption is any misuse of the creations and the gifts that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. So if we misuse anything He gave us, it's corruption. That includes the misuse of potential. If we have potential and we misuse it by killing it, then we are corrupt. And if one of the conditions of actualizing this human soul is loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then what He is telling us is that we are corrupting ourselves by not striving towards its actualization and not loving Him and doing these conditions, these 4 conditions, which He kind of stated in the ayah, right? He stated 3 out of the 4. But if we realize that dhikr and hanging out with the right people are both work towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then He is stating all these 3 conditions. And He's saying that these conditions, if you don't come to them or do not meet them, then you are corrupt. And again, we come back to the hadith of Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and to recognize why it is corruption. And it's corrupt because if we kill our potential, we become worse than animals. We are not doing what we were purposed to do. Okay? And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He gives us this really hard purpose and concept to grasp with, but He's also given us a way to actualize. And He's put it out beautifully in the Quran. The Quran, if we follow it, we will automatically actualize both our souls. But it's actually really difficult to do. But removing its difficulty, if we follow the Quran word to word, what we will be doing is following Sirat al-Mustaqim. Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us on this path. And He's given us the guide to this path, or the map of this path, and this map is the Quran. Okay? If we do not follow Sirat al-Mustaqim, what is happening is that we become corrupt and we kill our potential. And if we kill our potential, we're not able to actualize our soul. So even when we die, if we don't have anything left to actualize, there is no way of us be able to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even after death. And that's why what happens is we get put into this eternal incubator of hell. It's a scary concept. And that's why it's really important for us to recognize that we need to start working now. And so this is the reason why you're here listening to these lectures, why we're here studying this stuff, and inshallah we can take this up in our daily life and start to work towards actualization before it's too late. And so we're going to start with step number 1, loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But how do we do that? I mean, it seems like a really hard thing to do. If we can't even comprehend Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how can we go about loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Let's start with the word love first. What is love? In the dictionary, we'll start with the dictionary. It says that love is an intense feeling of deep affection or a great and intense interest or desire in something. It's a very basic definition for love, but we see that the way that, say, we love our parents is very different from how we love if you're married, your husband and your children. If we're not married, like how we love specific characters or role models in our life. Very, very different. And the reason they're different is because our interaction with them is very different. Well, our interaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also very different, which means that the way that we express our love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the way that we feel it is also different. We can't compare our love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the love for our parents. They are 2 separate things. So how can we go to understanding it if we can't even comprehend this feeling? And so we'll look at the thing which is common between all forms of love. And this common thing is love usually acts as our motivation in life. You don't believe me? I'll give you a very simple example. We'll give you these two foods, ice cream and kale. Which of these two will you eat? Give you time to think about it. Okay, if you're someone like me, and you just, this thing tastes good, you love ice cream, right? You're gonna pick the ice cream. And the reason, so what happens? Your love for something sweet and tasty motivates you to pick ice cream. However, sometimes that's not that's not what we want to achieve, you know? We have more important things. So some of you may have picked the kale because the kale will get you to the body that you want, the healthy body that you would like. So your love for a healthy physique motivated you to pick the kale instead. Both of these choices were motivated by a goal that you have, and your goal was stimulated by this love that you have for the outcome or the result. So the outcome in terms of the ice cream, it tastes sweet. The outcome for the kale is it will give you a good body. So you love the outcome, and because you love the outcome, it motivates you to do a particular action. But is our love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we don't even know him, which many people don't, does that mean they don't have this love to him? Well, no. Everybody is born with love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And we're going to give you a story just to explain how. The story is that once upon a time there was a king. This king had this magnificent kingdom. His kingdom had beautiful forests and rivers and everything you can imagine. And he was such a nice king that all his creations loved him. Absolutely loved this king. Right? But on the outskirts of his kingdom, there's this place where it's all foggy and mysterious, and none of his creatures know what's in that. None of the creatures living in the kingdom know what's in that fog. Only the king knows. And people who venture to the fog, they've never been seen again. So the place has been called the Land of Forgetfulness. Okay? But the king was like, I want to see if there is a creature that, one of my creatures would do everything for me. I want to test their love. And how am I going to do that? Well, I want someone to be really close to me, to help me in decisions and doing stuff, like be my executives in this kingdom, be like the wazir that does the other stuff through what I tell him, of course. And how I'm going to find the perfect person for the job is I am going to issue a challenge. I am going to issue this challenge, and it is I want to send someone, one of my creatures that live in the kingdom, to the Land of Forgetfulness. They have to explore it and just tell me what it is, and they must come back and report. Okay? So he's thinking, what creature would be good for this job? Why not the mountains? The mountains, they are strong. They have many things inside of them, minerals and stuff. They can store lots of things. So they'll be perfect for the job. So he asked them, and the mountains are like, we don't want to fail this task. We like it too much here, and if we go over there and fail, we'll lose this. We can't do it. It's like, okay. He asked the earth. He's like, okay, earth, what about you? And they're like, we don't want to lose you. We love you so much. We do not want to get lost in the land of forgetfulness and forget you. It's like, okay. So he asks the sky. The sky was like, no, it's too much of a risk to go there, because if we lose, we've lost everything. It's like, they all make sense, the statements. They're all afraid of it. But then there's one creature who tossed up the positives and the negatives. He was like, if we can achieve this, we can get the closest we've ever been to this king, who is the most amazing person in the world. So the humans volunteered. They're like, we'll do it. So the king's like, okay, human, thanks for volunteering. I am going to give you a key that's going to make your task easier. And this key is your love for me. Keep this key close to your heart and make sure it's safe inside your heart. And if you do, you're guaranteed to succeed. You're guaranteed to be able to come back. Okay? So let's look at what the story is in real life. Let's hypothetically say that this king is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And that this beautiful kingdom is the creation, everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, and everything in His mercy. And this land of forgetfulness is the dunya, this world. It's our test. Humans agreed to the test. We agreed to come here. Okay? And what else does the king say? He says that he gives us this key, which is his love. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because we decided to agree to this test, has given us something which will help us and guarantee us to move to Him. And it's called His love. And he said that this love was attached to the heart. But remember in the third lecture, the animalistic soul lecture, we said the heart was the origin of the animalistic soul. I mean, surely we're talking about things to actualize our human soul. How can you attach it to something which we link to the animalistic soul? The thing is, the heart, if we don't have something to go by, if all our souls are potential, then we can't even start to actualize because we have no tools. The reason why the animalistic and plastic souls are actualized is so that we have tools to be able to start to move forward and progress. So we need these tools. This heart is really important so that we are able to understand how to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And there's this incredible story of one of our sheikhs. A student came up to him and he asked him, he asked this sheikh, he's like, Sheikhna, how can I start to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How does it feel like? What am I meant to do, and how can I realize that I've done this thing right? So the sheikh asks him, have you loved a girl before? And the students go, A'udhu billah, how can you even say such a thing? I am a man of Islam, I cannot do that. And so the sheikh goes, then you'll never know how to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Interesting, huh? The reason for this is because if we get a taster of what love looks like at a animalistic level, then we recognize the traits which go along with this love, and we'll be able to recognize it when it comes in the form of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if we've never felt love before, we'll never be able to actualize our souls. Everything is given to us in a smaller proportion by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like knowledge is given us in a small proportion, remembering is given to us in a small proportion. So we're able to understand what it is, and then we can move on to get the fuller picture. And this is a great example of it, the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, you're probably thinking, oh no, that's a cute story, but where's the sense in it? Is this even real? It is. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually tells us the story in the Quran. In Surah Al-Ahzab, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, إِنَّا عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالْجِبَالِ فَأَبَيْنَ أَنْ يَحْمِلْهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. We offered the trust to the skies, the earth, and the mountains, and they declined to bear it and feared it. But the human bared it. They were ignorant and unjust. So what is this trust that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is talking about? So we know what the challenge is, but He gave us a trust with this challenge. It is free will. Why? Because free will gives us the ability to do this test. If we didn't have the free will to decide to go to the dunya, to decide to do all the actions that we're doing now, then there's nothing to be tested by. That's why other creatures don't have free will. They didn't want it. It's too much of a responsibility. And it's because free will comes with this ability to, say, create things. Remember the example that we gave last week about the teeth and the chocolate? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created the teeth and the chocolate, but insan, humans created rotting teeth. That's not something Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave. But we created it by putting the wrong mixture together. But there are good things that we have created too, like prosthetic legs or, all these conservation reserves that we've created. We've done good. We have the ability to create good as well. Obviously, all good that we create is also through Allah, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So He gave us this amazing thing, and inshallah, when we achieve remembering, we'll be able to remember this exact point, because this is our pledge to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A lot of people are like, well, I didn't want to come to this dunya, I didn't want to do this test. Well, we did, we just don't remember it. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can give us this ability to remember it and to see the beauty and why we agree to it. How insan saw the glass half full. Okay? So now we're in this land. It's the only way we can get back to our King, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it's through Salat al-Mustaqim, because that's the easiest route back. Okay? How does this key fit into it? How does the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala fit into this all? Well, Salat al-Mustaqim is very difficult. And if we're not motivated to stay on it, we will lose our track. But the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is this rail guard which is next to Salat al-Mustaqim. It's this motivation to continue to go on, and it helps us up. That's why it's so important to have. When we're taking this journey of actualization, we need the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with us, because it will keep us going. And that's why we are going to look at it into more detail. But we also need to recognize, well, why is Salat, why do we need it? Why can't we just follow Salat al-Mustaqim and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala force us through it? Why can't He have this chain attached to us and pull us there? We're going to give this example. So this kid just finished year 12 and his parents are so happy and he wants to go and celebrate. He wants to go and party with his friends. But his parents say, no, don't go to a party. It's not wrong. Why? Well, are they doing it because they're angry with their child? No, they're doing it because they love their child. They have more experience than him, and they know that this party may have bad things for their child. And so they don't want him to be exposed to it. So they put the strict rule there to make sure he doesn't get exposed to this thing. Now, if the child loved his parents, he will not go to the party. He will listen to them, and by that, avoid all this bad stuff. But if he didn't love them very much, he's probably going to sneak out anyway and go. So recognize this with us. Salat al-Mustaqim is this really challenging path, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given it to us because it is the easiest way there, and it will avoid us from falling into many of the traps of shaitan. If we loved Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we wouldn't care how hard it is, and we will continue. If we don't love Him very much, it will be much harder for us to stick to Salat al-Mustaqim, and we'll start to divert away. So that is why it's really important that to accompany our journey, we need the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, going back to the story, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us a condition, or the king gave a condition with this key that he gave. And this condition was that he has to keep it safe in his heart. There is a concept in Islam which explains this perfectly, and it's called qalb al-salim, the safeguarded heart. We need to have a safeguarded heart to be able to keep this key. And Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam explains what the safeguarded heart is. He says, القلب السليم الذي يلقى ربه وليس فيه أحد سواه وكل قلب فيه شرك أو شك فهو ساقط وإنما يريد الزهد في الدنيا لتفرغ قلوبهم للآخرة. So the safeguarded heart is that which returns to his Lord and has nothing in it but Him. And every heart which has companions with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or doubt is not safeguarded. For if it were, it would detach itself from this world, so that heart would be only empty for the hereafter. So Imam Al-Sadiq alayhi salam is giving us 3 conditions for a safeguarded heart. And these 3 conditions are no shirk, so no companions with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, no doubt, no shirk, and to detach ourselves from this world. So we're going to look at these three separately. And the first one is shirk, polytheism. So we briefly talked about this in our first lecture, but we're going to go through it again. So what is shirk? It's not believing in one God. That is the definition of shirk. Haram shirk is if we believe in many gods, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not one of those. Okay? When that is the condition, that becomes haram. Okay? But the thing is, there are many people who who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So they're not doing this form of shirk. They believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but they still do shirk. We have many examples of this in the Quran. One of the most prominent examples, which is repeated constantly in the Quran, is the example of Bani Israel. And one example that we're going to give from Bani Israel is the Ijl. Musa alayhi salam left them for 40 days. In those 40 days, they created a golden calf and started worshipping it. How? How did they go from being believers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends them a messenger and miracles, to completely worshipping something else? It's because they had shirk in their heart. It existed. And so they may have loved money a bit more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's very easy for shaitan to manipulate their love and make them switch completely. But there's another type of shirk. And it's a shirk which comes with worshipping specific attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a whole. Sometimes it's a misconception that we as Muslims fall into today. But a prominent example of this type of shirk is Christianity. So they have one God, but it comes in the form of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And so, for example, if they want to ask for forgiveness, they usually ask Jesus for forgiveness, the Son for forgiveness. But they're asking for mercy, they go to the Father and ask the Father directly. So what they're doing here is actually something which is dangerous. And maybe it's our limited understanding of how they think, but in what they're saying is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't have mercy to forgive. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cannot forgive them. So they have to go to the Son to forgive them, which is not right. Sometimes we do this when we only think of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through sifat, which are scary, kind of like Al-Jabbar and that kind of thing. And so we only worship this thing because we worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because we are afraid of Him, not because we love Him. But then there are the other sides as well. So we need to make sure that we're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a full, through all His sifat, as something complete, not specific attributes, because that becomes shirk. And there's two forms of shirk, and they are shirk al-amali and shirk al-qalbi, so through the heart and through actions. We're going to talk about both of them. So shirk al-qalbi comes about when we don't have a safeguarded heart. So a safeguarded heart would be a heart which only has Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala inside it. However, if we reflect on what we have in our heart, sometimes what we do, our occupation, our job takes a huge chunk of our life, and we really enjoy it, and we put a lot of our effort into it without Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, without having the intention for Him. So that takes a part of our heart. Another thing is our addictions. We have a lot of addictions to this dunya, and they take a part of our heart as well. Our role models. Any role model that we have also takes part of our heart. If they're not a role model that we have because we want to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And family. Family takes a lot of our heart as well. And if we have these things, if these things are sharing the heart with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's not safeguarded. The second form of shirk is shirk al-amali, and we talked in detail about, how riya and actions that we do without the intention for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can act as shirk. So we're going to give you a taster or a food for thought. And it's a quote by Oprah Winfrey. She says, "Following your heart's desire will lead you in the direction your spirit wants to go." Why is this wrong? Well, what she's saying is that what dictates what should dictate where we want to go in life is our heart. We know that's not right, because inshallah we'll reach a stage when, we desire to reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and so our spirit wants to go there too. But like, irrespective of that, we're talking about the real world and the situation where we are at now. Do our heart's desires want us to get to Sirat al-Mustaqim? Sometimes it's not true. But the biggest problem with this is the fact that she's talking about you, or us. It's this thing about loving yourself first, or looking at yourself, looking at how good you are, and trying to achieve your potential. And we're not saying it in terms of potential of actualizing your human self, but it's this potential that people are now believing in. This ability for you to become the leader of your society, or to be able to, showcase your true self to the world. That's not right, because it's too much focusing on the dunya and the goals of the dunya and not the akhirah. And we'll give you an example of this, of a friend of ours. So she is a surgeon and she absolutely loves her job. And to be able to get into to have a full time in surgery, she does over hours, not for money, just for free, so that the bosses can see her and she can achieve what she wants to, because she really enjoys her job. That's not right, because she's giving too much attention to what she sees herself in the future, a good surgeon, and she's putting a lot of effort into it. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't put effort into the dunya, because obviously you need a job to be able to survive, and if you have a family, to help your family survive, but you can't put extra effort into it. And if your intention is not for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then it's not a correct way of living. So as we said before, your heart, or the things that you love, motivate you to do actions. But in this case, where we still haven't achieved love, we can do it by the other way around. Use your actions to create this love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what we mean by that, emphasize, the reason why in salah it's wajib, or when we're doing sawm, it's wajib for us to make an intention, is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to get into the habit of making everything that we do for Him, every action. So physically tell yourself, before you do anything, before you eat, say Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Before you do anything, give the intention that is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even though you don't mean it. But with repetition and in time, you will mean it, and it will become for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And your intentions will be automatic, inshallah. So that's something that we can do. Keep forcing ourselves, or telling ourselves that this is for Allah, even though we may not mean it, but it will get us there. It will get us there. So now we're going to look at the second one. So we talked about shirk. Now we're going to look at shak, or doubt. Some forms of doubt are good. So for example, if you're in the supermarket and you want to buy some curry paste, because you're making this awesome curry for your family, before you buy it, if you have doubt, you're like, is this halal? And you read the ingredients, this is a good form of shak. Shak in your senses is really good. And I mean, scientists use this a lot. They have doubt in the data. They always have doubt in the data, because they're like, oh, because this is experimental and it depends on our perspective. That is right. We should always doubt our senses, because they are our limited perspective. But then there are forms of doubt which are really bad. And this is the doubt in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His messengers. We don't only mean the Ahlul Bayt and the Anbiya, we mean all His messengers. Okay? And Imam Ali alayhi salam says that when من شك في الله تعالى بعد مولده على الفطرة لم يفئ إلى خير أبدا. Who has doubt in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after he started following his fitrah, he will never reach any goodness. That's pretty bad. So first of all, there's a condition to this doubt, and it is that you must be on your fitrah. You must be following your fitrah, which means that a child And someone who is not a Muslim or a mu'min is exempt from this condition. They can doubt. And the reason for that is, for example, if you're not a Muslim, but you're doubting your own beliefs. You're doubting whether this God is real or not. You're doubting whether or not there is a God. This is good for you because it will reach you to Sirat al-Mustaqim. It will reach you to the correct path. And as for a child, they need to be able to question things before they reach taklif. Because if they reach taklif and Islam doesn't make sense for them, that's when they start diverting, and that's when it becomes haram to divert. If they get all these things off their chest before they become mature, before they reach taklif, it is very good for them to clarify their beliefs before they get there, so that they become mukallaf with sincerity. And that's why that condition is there. But once we reach that stage, if you start doubting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll never reach any goodness. Why? Because you will continue to doubt and to doubt. Doubt is like a disease. Once you have it, it will continue, and not only that, it can spread to other people. And that's why it will never come to any goodness. Okay, and we come to another hadith by the Imam alayhi salam, which is من شك في الله تعالى وفي رسوله فهو كافر. This is the reason why it doesn't lead to any goodness, because it leads to kufr. So now we need to introduce this concept of kufr. What does it mean to be kafir? So the literal translation of kufr is to cover. But what are we covering? How is this even linked to doubt? Well, if you're covering the truth, it is linked to doubt. Why would anyone want to cover the truth? I mean, the truth is the thing that we all strive for, right? Everybody says we want to find the truth. And the reason why people are afraid of the truth and hence cover it is because truth comes with responsibility. So Islam, we know it's the truth, but it comes with a lot of things. We need to pray, we need to fast, we need to do hajj, we have obligation towards our parents, we have obligations toward money, like giving hummus. It's many things. And people who want to live their life in the dunya, they don't want this extra burden. So what they do, they cover the truth. They're like, there's no such thing as a religion, there's no such thing as a God, we don't have to pray, we don't have consequences in the day after. That's the reason it comes to be. And we're going to give you an example of what a modern kafir, someone we can for sure say is a kafir because they stated themselves, and Stephen Hawking. This quote by Stephen Hawking summarizes this beautifully. He says, what I mean by we would be able to know the mind of God is that we would know everything that God would know, if there was a God, which there isn't. I'm an atheist. What is the tone of Stephen Hawking when he says this quote? What is he saying? He's saying that, if we can, he just came up with this theory, and he's like, if we can solve this problem, we will know everything. We will know everything about the universe. So technically, we'll know the creator of the universe, everything the creator of the universe knows. But the creation doesn't have a creator, because there's no God. It's arrogance. It's a very arrogant tone. So kufr is shak. Kufr is linked to arrogance, and so shak is linked to arrogance as well. Why? Because when you're doubting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you're saying that I know better than you. My senses and my limited access of the mind knows more than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does. So this rule doesn't make sense. Wearing a hijab, that doesn't make sense. Because this, and this. We have arrogance towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's what makes us cover the truth. We don't want the truth. We believe in our truth. And that's why we become kafirin. So technically, what kufr is, it's just an excuse. An excuse for us not to be on Sirat al-Mustaqim. And the reason why it's an excuse is because we find Sirat al-Mustaqim too hard. We don't want to pray, we don't want to fast, we don't want to wear hijab. So we're like, we don't need to because it doesn't make sense. That's kufr. So that was the second one. Inshallah, we're not at that stage. But a lot of people who think too much about Islam, especially if they're using critical thinking rather than holistic thinking, they do reach, unfortunately, these conclusions. The final one was detachment of this world, and we covered this a lot in the potentiality and actuality lecture, and it's how we create attachments to this dunya, and these stop us from going to the hereafter happily. Okay, so depending on how thick our roots are in this dunya, how much things we love, how attached we are, it makes going to the hereafter very difficult. And that's why death can be painful for some people, because they're too attached to this world. So we need to sever these attachments. Not liking anything. You know, that raises another question. Does that mean we can't love anything except Allah? We'll get to that. But we need to introduce a concept first. And that is, if we loved only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what will happen? So we need to look at normal examples. When someone loves and looks up to somebody, they would copy them in every single action. So this kid loves Ronaldo. Look at him. He's a mini Ronaldo, pretty much. And the same with us. A child looks up to their parents and usually follows and acts like their parents do. So if we only love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then we will start to act in His behalf. And we're not saying we're going to act like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but we're going to start manifesting His attributes. We're going to start being Kareem. We're going to start being all the Asma Allah al-Husna. That's the meaning of being Khalifatullah on this earth. One of the attributes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Al-Wadud, the loving. And this is the loving of every creation. So if we're able to achieve this, if we only have Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our safeguarded heart, our heart will be able to encompass all of creation. We'll be able to love everything under the umbrella of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you can love anything, unless only if it's through the under the umbrella of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will it not take up space equal to Him in our heart. And so we won't be doing shirk in that way. Okay? But then you're wondering, should we be loving everything? Like, should we be loving injustice and corruption? No. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like those stuff. So what do we mean by everything? We mean, and so to be able to understand what we mean by everything, we need to look at what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love for creation looks like. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala love the people who sin? Does He love the people who don't listen to Him and do haram? The people who kill others? And the people who don't even believe in Him? Does He love them or not? Like, did He love Yazid? Did He love Hitler? Fir'aun? Well, if He didn't love him, why did He give them luxuries like cars and mansion and money? I mean, look at who we're talking about. Hitler, he ran a country. Yazid ran the Islamic Ummah, he had every luxury he wanted. Fir'aun, same story. Why didn't He take all that away from them? If He didn't love them, He could have easily have done that. The thing is, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves every potential. Those people actively chose to kill their potential. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't like that action of killing potential. So He doesn't like what they did. But what they were and could have become, that's what He loved. He also knows that by killing their potential, their akhirah is not going to be happy or sweet. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want anybody to suffer forever. So He's going to give them a little bit of happiness through this dunya before they have to suffer eternal judgment and eternal punishment. And this is part of His mercy. Okay? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows His love as a general form of love, but then He gives specific love to the people who ask for it, to the people who want His love and ask Him for His love even more, like the Ahlul Bayt and the Imams and inshallah us. And we should aim to also love things in that same way. We're allowed to love any form of potential. Like, we love seeds. We don't know whether this is going to become a weed or a like, we don't know if this tree is going to be parasites to the trees around it or that kind of thing. Like, a good example is, why did, you know, Australians bring rabbits and foxes into the country? I mean, for them, the potential of it was a really nice idea, and they liked the idea of having this meat to eat and that kind of thing. But it now turned out that this wasn't the greatest idea. Like, this happens all the time. Sometimes there is a great potential and it gets killed because of human actions. But it doesn't mean that we should hate the potential. We love the potential. It's okay for us not to like the end product though, because once the insan has gotten involved, we can manipulate a lot of things. So nobody likes a rotten tooth, but nobody disliked the tooth to start off with. I hope that makes sense. And that's how we should distinguish between our love. And so that's why we feel different forms of love to different things. That's why we love our parents way more than we love other things, maybe. Except, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala let bait. But different forms of love come because of these different attachments that we should have to that particular thing. And we're not saying that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves one thing more than another in one sense. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's general love is equal to everything. But then He is able to give more love to the people who ask for it. It's kind of like saying, you might think this is unfair, but I'll give you an example to kind of explain why it is fair. Let's say there was a class and a teacher was teaching this particular content, and she gives them homework, all the students the same amount of homework. One day, and she's like, you have 1 week to finish this. The next day, one of the students comes up to her and he says, oh, I finished all my homework and I really want more because I really enjoyed it. Can you please give me more homework? Should the teacher give him more homework, or should she give everybody in the class more homework? It's not fair if she gives everybody in the class more homework, because they can't cope with all the homework that she's giving if she gives them more. But this kid can handle more homework, so she should give him more to push him further to actualize his potential. And that's the same with the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He gives everyone the same amount of love, and the people who ask for more love because they want the challenge, because, you know, more love means more responsibility, means more hardship in your life. So the people who ask for it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows they can handle it, and He gives it to them. And that's a really important thing. It should be, and we should be able to also manage our love levels after, inshallah, achieving the love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the same manner. Okay? But where do we start? Now we know how to do it and how important it is. Where do we start with trying to do this? And a person came to Imam Ali and asked him that exact same question. And the Imam replies, أن درجاتهم من استصغر طاعته واستعظم ذنبه. And so this guy's like, okay, هل درجة أعلى منها? And the Imam says, نعم 70 درجة. So we'll translate this to English. So a person comes up to Imam Ali and asks about the levels of love to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so the Imam says that the first level of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is making good actions seem small and bad actions seem big in your eyes. And so when the guy was like, okay, is that the only step, or are there any higher stages? The Imam says there are 70 more. That's a lot of steps. So we're only going to take the first step for now, and inshallah, once we achieve it, we'll be able to move on. So an example of how to do this is, you're in the mall, okay, and there's two ladies who are walking in front of you, and they drop a coin. So what you do is you pick the coin up and you give it back to them. So they turn back and they thank you. You've just done something good, but you can have two responses to that. The first one, you can be really proud, and you can be like, I was so good by doing that. You know, that was the right thing to do. I should have done that. And, you know, I must be the nicest person in the world. What you're doing there is the opposite of what the Imam is saying. You're making an action, which, you know, it's not that big of a deal, giving a coin back, as the biggest thing in the world. What you should be doing is downplaying this action. Just be like, Alhamdulillah. Be humble about it. And the truth is, the reality is that you're not actually doing this action. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is doing this through you. Remember in the last lecture, you are the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth, because He's given you this ability to do good, but all good comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you ponder about it, you'll recognize that He didn't do this. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do this. So alhamdulillah, and thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for actually making you that person who does the good. It means He's trusted you with being able to do His good, and it's an incredible thing to feel like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala trusting you. Okay? Conversely, if we're looking at something, if you're watching TV and something bad shows up, you quickly flip the channel, okay? A lot of people will just dismiss it and be like, oh, it was an accident, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not going to punish me. And that's the truth. If it was an accident, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala won't punish you. But you still did something bad. So instead of downplaying it as you did, upplay it, you'd be like, oh my god, Maryam, you know that at this time this channel has bad stuff. Why are you even checking this channel? Or like, Maryam, you should just know what you're watching. Like, why are you wasting your time looking through the channels anyway? Upplay your badness, and the reason why you should upplay it is because you're using this constructive anger, and it's going to stop you from repeating this action in the future. So that's the first step, and inshallah we can take this home and try to apply it in our daily lives. But then there are 70 more. I mean, it may seem overwhelming, and this is one of the 4 things we need to do to actualize. We have limited time. How are we going to do this all? We can't do it alone. So the best way for us to be able to achieve it is to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us. Because He loves us, He wants to help us. Just ask Him and He'll give it to you. Okay, and so we're going to give you a dua which Sayyid Qa'ali recommends us to read in every qunut of our salah daily. And he says if we do that, we'll be able to gain happiness every day. So this dua is from Munajat al-Muhibbin, and it is Allahumma rzuqni hubbak wa hubba ma tuhib wa hubba man yuhibbak wal amal alladhi yablughni ila hubbak wa jal hubbak ahabb al-ashya' ilayk. Oh God, grant me love for you, and love for the things you love, and love for the people who love you, and the work that gets me to your love, and make my love for you the most beloved thing to me. And inshallah that's something that you can take home and apply from today, because we don't have time to spare. Our clock is running and we really need to start working for our akhirah. So inshallah this is something small that we can start to apply in our daily lives. And we're going to end our lecture here. So Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Alright, so we're going to move to the movie segment now, inshallah. And I don't know if this is going to work, but inshallah this is going to work, okay? We have a lot of clips today, and the reason is we would love to show you this entire movie. We just can't. We don't have that time. So we recommend, what you could do is pause the movie now, the clip now, and go and watch this movie yourself. The movie that we're going to take the clips from is Prince Caspian. It's the second installment in the Narnia series, and it has many, many important concepts. However, we're not going to be able to go through all of them today, so we've picked 5 clips from the movie which we think demonstrate and reflect a lot of the concepts that we discussed today, inshallah. So we'll go through these clips. I'll give you a brief introduction about each clip, and then we'll discuss the concepts from each clip, inshallah. So if you haven't seen Narnia and you don't know what it's about, I'll give you a brief introduction of what it is. It was written by a Christian author, and it's meant to reflect a lot of Christian ideology, and it's actually really beautiful. A lot of things which we can relate to in Islam. So there's a land of Narnia, and the thing that created the land of Narnia is this lion called Aslan. That's really important to know. This lion called Aslan, he comes to this world, and sometimes he goes, and they don't see him. So in the context of this movie, they haven't seen him in many, many years. But in the movie before, he does come back, because he's trying to help the people of Narnia defeat the evil person who was called the White Witch in the previous movie. And the land of Narnia has kings and queens, and these kings and queens are human. So in this movie, the kings and queens, there are 4 kings and queens, and they're siblings, and they all come from this real world, okay, not from Narnia, but they go to Narnia and they become the kings and queens. So they became the kings and queens in the previous movie because they helped Aslan in defeating the White Witch and that kind of thing, and they were prophesized to come. But in this movie, they were called back by a person called Caspian, because Narnia has been invaded by these evil humans called Tolmarines, and they've killed pretty much all the people and the mythical creatures who used to live in Narnia, and the ones that have survived, they're in hiding. But Aslan didn't come and save them, so a lot of them have stopped believing in Aslan. So these 4 kings and queens, so there are 2 boys and 2 girls. The oldest one is called Peter, the second oldest is called Susan, the third is called Edmund, and he's a boy, and the last one, who's the youngest, was called Lucy. They each have different attachments to Narnia. Peter was the High King, so he had a lot of respect, and when he went to back to the normal world, nobody respected him, so he really wants to prove himself that he's a good king. Okay, Susan's not really important for our video clip, so we're just going to ignore her. Edmund, in the previous movie, used to be with the bad, he accidentally was with the bad person, the White Witch, and he realized how much of a mistake he was, and so now he's trying to fix it up. Okay, and the reason that, and so by fixing it up, he is helping his little sister. And his little sister was the one who discovered Narnia and brought her siblings to Narnia, and she's the one who has the closest relation with Aslan. Okay, so we'll show you this clip first, inshallah. So in this clip, they're walking, they're trying to find these mythical, the remaining people from Narnia, and they found a little dwarf, and he's leading them there.
Aslan? It's Aslan! It's Aslan over there! Don't you see? He's right there.
Do you see him now?
I'm not crazy. He was there. I wanted to follow him.
Sure, there are any number of lions in this wood. Just like that bear.
I think I know Aslan when I see him.
Look, I'm not about to jump off a cliff after someone who doesn't exist.
The last time I didn't believe Lucy, I ended up looking pretty stupid.
Why wouldn't I have seen him?
Maybe you weren't looking.
I'm sorry, Lou.
So in that clip, I'll kind of explain the characters by what they said. So the person who didn't believe in Aslan, so the guy who's like, oh, I'm not going to jump off a cliff for someone who doesn't exist, that was the dwarf that's going to lead them, okay? The girl who's telling them, oh, look over there, there's Aslan, that's Lucy, that's the one who has the closest relationship to Aslan. She saw him, but nobody else did. And when everybody tried to look, he went away. Okay, the person who asked her why couldn't I have seen him, that was Peter, the oldest brother that's trying to prove himself. And the other one, the guy with dark hair, that's her younger brother who's like, the last time I didn't listen to Lucy, I ended up doing something stupid. So, and he stayed behind, and he was like the one who followed Lucy at the end. Remember, like they all left and he stayed. And he waited for Lucy to move. And when Lucy moved, he followed after her. So just subtle things that we want you to pick up on because they'll be really important later on. Okay, so now they've found the Narnians, so the people that live in Narnia who are hiding, and they've decided that they need to do something about these bad people who have invaded. So this is the next clip.
whereas his men and war machines are on their way. That means those same men aren't protecting his castle.
What do you propose we do, Your Majesty?
We need to get ready for it. Our only hope is to strike them before they strike us.
But that's crazy. No one has ever taken that castle.
There's always a first time.
We'll have the element of surprise.
But we have the advantage here.
If we dig in, we could probably hold them off indefinitely.
I, for one, feel safer underground.
Look, I appreciate what you've done here. But this isn't a fortress. It's a tomb.
Yes, and if they're smart, the Talmurids will just wait and starve us out.
We could collect nuts.
Yes, and throw them at the Talmurids. Shut up. I think you know where I stand, sire.
If I get your troops in, can you handle the guards?
Would I try, my liege?
That's what I'm worried about.
Sorry?
You're all acting like there's only two options. Down here, or down there.
What should you've really been listening to?
No, you're not listening. Or have you forgotten who really defeated the White Witch, Peter?
I think we've waited for Aslan long enough.
Yeah, waited for Aslan long enough. It's pretty bad. So I think you can see what we're trying to get with this clip. So it's showing you how, for some reason, Peter he doesn't want to go and find Aslan to help. He doesn't want to ask him for help. And remember when we said Aslan is the creator of Narnia, and this guy was talking about he was referring to Jesus, the author, when he wrote this. So he doesn't want to ask for help from anyone. He wants to prove himself. Okay? Whereas Lucy's saying, no, we need to go and ask for help. If you guys didn't know who that second character was, that was the prince that is trying to help the Narnians against the bad people. His name's Prince Caspian, okay? So that's the second clip. The third clip is going, so what happened between then and there? Okay, no, we're not going to spoil the movie. You guys, if you want, you can watch it yourself. But the important thing is that Edmund then convinced everybody else that we should let Lucy go and find Aslan because he'll help us. And they agreed to send Lucy. So in the next clip, Lucy's now going to find Aslan.
Aslan! I knew it was you. The whole time, I knew it. But the others didn't believe me.
And why would that stop you from coming to me?
I'm sorry. I was too scared to come alone. Why wouldn't you show yourself? Why couldn't you come roaring in and save us like last time?
Things never happen the same way twice, dear one.
Is that Camellia? Devil already died? Could I stop that?
We can never know what would have happened, Lucy. But what will happen is another matter entirely.
And you'll help?
Of course. As will you.
Oh, I wish I was braver.
If you were any braver, you'd be a lioness. Now, I think your friends have slept long enough, don't you?
Okay, so there was a really interesting discussion being had between Aslan and Lucy. So she knew he was there, right? She believed in him, she saw him, she has that connection. However, he said to her, so why did that stop you from coming? The other people didn't believe. Why did that stop you from coming to me? Something we should really ask ourselves. Why do the people around us stop us from going to seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Why are we afraid? Just because everybody's following a particular thing, it doesn't mean it's right. It doesn't mean we have to follow it. We should have gone to him long ago, but we're afraid of it. Yeah, it's a harsh reality that we have to face though, because we do it all the time. It's really good though. So now the next clip is going to be Lucy and Aslan going to meet the bad guys. And now we want you to focus on the reaction of the bad guys rather than the characters that we discussed, okay?
We can defeat them if we draw them to the river. What must we do?
Okay, so if you saw the bad guys, as soon as they saw Lucy, they stopped on the bridge, okay? Then he turned back and he saw Caspian's army and the King and Peter and Edmund's army. They looked back and Aslan was there. And they decided to go forward, okay? And they only stopped when Aslan roared at them. So this is reflective of sometimes in this dunya. So if we say the army of Caspian is like the people in our communities and society, and let's say Lucy's kind of like a prophet or imam or someone with the truth, okay? So what happens is that sometimes we're facing the truth. It stops us, correct? But we're more afraid of the dunya and the people around us and what they think that we may do something wrong and charge and disbelieve in the truth in front of us. Okay? It's not until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us a test that we, completely stop. So that was kind of what we were reflecting through that clip. Like, they saw Aslan, the sign, and they stopped, but it wasn't enough to stop them completely. They continued to go across the bridge. But what stopped them completely was when he roared. And a roar is more terrifying, right? So that's why we're saying a roar is kind of like a test or an ordeal of the dunya. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us all these ni'am around us and we're like, oh yeah, sometimes we forget. But as soon as someone gets sick, as soon as we get sick, as soon as something bad happens to us, we're like, oh my God, now I remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Something we should take. Okay, and the last clip really links really closely to the first clip we watched. So this is kind of at the end of the movie. inshallah.
Rise, kings and queens of Narnia. All of you.
I do not think I am ready.
It's for that very reason I know you are. Where is this dear little friend you've told me so much about?
Do you see it now?
Okay, so that's the last clip for today, inshallah. So there was two things we wanted to highlight from this clip. The first one is Caspian's position. So when Aslan said, "Rise, kings and queens," he didn't rise because he didn't believe he was a king and queen. And then when Aslan tells him, "No, you're included too," he's like, "I don't think I'm ready. I'm not worthy." Why? If you watch the entire film, you'll see that Caspian did a lot of good, a lot of work, and the Narnians went behind him, and they loved him. So the only thing stopping him from believing that he was a king is himself. It's like he's downplaying his good actions that he's done, and he's upplaying or like making really big in his own eyes all his faults. And for that reason, Aslan's like, "No, that's the reason why you are. Because that is the thing that I'm looking for." Remember, the first step of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is to make your good actions look small and your bad actions look big. That's what Caspian did. And that's why Aslan said that, "No, you're ready to become a king for Narnia." So that's a really nice concept. And the second one is the dwarf. So remember, that's the same dwarf at the beginning that didn't believe in Aslan at all. He's like, "Oh, I'm not going to jump off a cliff for someone that doesn't exist." Did you see the reaction? His reaction when he saw Aslan? I'm not going to give you much more than that. I want you to think about how he reacted. How do you think we will react when we discover the truth of our Amal in the day after, if we didn't believe in a day after? So that's going to be the end of it, inshallah. Salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.